For our next session, it is my great pleasure to introduce a special keynote speaker joining us online from Aspire Institute, Ms. Meena Sonea, CEO of Aspire Institute, leading global initiatives that empower young leaders through world-class leadership, development, and international opportunities. Aspire has always been at the forefront of nurturing innovation, research, and leadership. And today have the opportunity to gain insights directly from their experts. It is great honor to introduce Ms. Meena Sonia, who brings a global perspective on leadership, growth, and opportunity. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming our esteemed keynote speaker from Inspire, who will guide us through and inspire us to take our learning and aspirations to next level. Ma'am, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, great, great. Thanks, Prasha. So I am very pleased to be here today, and I am calling from Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it's a long, long way away, but here we are. And I am honored to be part of this organizing that the Nepal Student Group has put together. Um, Thank you very much, Manish, for bringing us together. You have worked hard, and I'm sure that you have heard from many people today in person at the Trichandra campus. Um, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Mumbai, and I was very much interested in architecture. I wanted to go abroad to study because I don't know if, at that time, this was like late 80s, early 90s. There were not a lot of architecture schools in India, but I was very adamant that that's what I wanted to study. But I had no resources. I grew up in a very modest home and knew that it would cost a lot to go abroad to study. And I even applied when I thought I wanted to go. I got into a university. At that time, I had an uncle who lived in California who offered to pay my tuition. But when the time came, he backed out for whatever reason. Maybe he was having difficulty. And obviously, I was disappointed because my heart was very much set on going abroad to study. I had put a portfolio together, I had put a resume, I had been accepted, I had done an interview. And then I did not give up. And I decided I will work. And I worked for 3 years and I saved up money just enough to make it to the US. I reapplied after that. I had money for one semester and I said, I'll figure it out. And after that, I came to the US. I worked hard, very hard. And I was probably the hardest working student in my class. And we were a class of 13. And in the second semester, I was told I was going to get a scholarship. And so the reason I'm sharing my story is what I have learned over these last 30 years of building an organization, looking for jobs, figuring out a way. It has given me experience of what it takes to be a leader. And what that is for me in this very instance was to not give up and to work very hard. And people see that. As a leader, what you realize is people look up to you to see if they can rely on you, if you are providing them any kind of inspiration, and they see something about themselves in you. These are some of the qualities of being a leader. Leadership is not about years and years of experience. You're 21 years old. You might be 25 years old. There is still those qualifications that I just described in you. You don't have to be 40, 50 years old to be a leader. It's there within you. So one of the things that I learned from my time when I was your young age, wanting to go to school in the US, working through all the difficult situations but not giving up. That was one thing I learned. The other thing I've learned, then I came to the US, okay? Then went to school, I finished my architecture degree, I started to work in a firm, and I enjoyed my work for the most part. But for me, something was missing. And what that was I was living in the US, but I miss my community that came from India, from South Asia, all of you. You know what it's like, right? When you go to your aunt's house or you go to your friend's house, that kind of communication, that engagement was something that was missing for me. So the second thing I learned about leadership was volunteering. And what I did then is I decided, okay, I was missing my connection to my people living here in Boston. So I started to volunteer at a women's organization called Saheli. And you all probably know what Saheli means. It's Maitri, which is a friend. And so this organization was based in Boston. They used to provide, and they still exist actually, they used to provide uh, advice, advocacy for women immigrants who were coming from South Asia to Boston to be with their husbands. At that time, this was in the 90s, late 90s. There were a lot of software engineers coming from India, particularly to the US. And so the wives would come as dependents. And what ended up happening is, as a dependent, there was sometimes domestic abuse, there was financial abuse, there was emotional abuse. And these young women could not work. They did not have the community because they had left their homes to be here. And so the organization called Saheli was where I started to volunteer. I did a training for about 40 hours of training you do, and then you become what they call advocates, which means that you can then guide the people who come to support you. You work with the police department because sometimes they don't understand the Indian language. So you work as a translator. You sometimes become someone who'll escort the young lady if she has to go to court. So I started to do that kind of work. It wasn't related to architecture. It was very different from what my day job was. But again, what I wanted to bring to your attention about this was that volunteering is something you choose to do on your own, right? And for example, you also know right now that what Manish and his team put together was all volunteered. They were not getting paid for this, what they put this event together to bring you together, to learn from other leaders. So what the Nepalese Society of Student Researchers did is they said, what they have learned from Aspire, they want to bring to you. So that's how this event came together. So what I want to say about volunteering is it's something you choose to do because you enjoy it, you learn something from it, and you get an opportunity to meet new people who you would not meet otherwise in your day job. And in that process, you learn to become a leader. What you're learning is the challenges that come your way. You're not getting paid, as you know. And what you learn is it's something new. It's different from your work that you've been doing. So, what I learned during that time was these young women who were having difficult time in their life, they were coming to me for guidance. And all of a sudden, you get put in a position of being a leader. And so that was another experience that I thought was very transformative for my life here. So, how does Aspire come about? After I started to volunteer with the South Asian women's organization called Saheli, I knew I wanted to do work in the social sector. And I went back to school and got another master's degree in international development. I learned certain formal language. I learned about different uh, policies. I learned about economics. I learned sociology and how all of these factors connect in terms of making any kind of social change in the world. After which, I ended up at Harvard University. I became the executive director of the South Asia Institute at Harvard, where we supported faculty and students interested in research on South Asia. And I had many opportunities to work with people on the ground. And when I say on the ground, it was in all of the countries in South Asia, everywhere from Sri Lanka to Nepal, to Bangladesh, to Pakistan, India. And what we used to do is identify researchers, faculty, experts who were doing work in these different countries so that we were going to do new research, create new knowledge, and publish the work that was being done jointly by what was happening on the ground. And it could have been in science, it could have been in the humanities, it could have been in social science. We were pretty much in every sector. In fact, one of the projects I remember that when I came to Kathmandu was after the earthquake, we worked with the architects, urban designers, and restoration designers to look at the rehabilitation after the earthquake of some of the heritage buildings in Nepal. And so we brought faculty from Harvard. We came to Kathmandu for 5 days and worked with planners to look at disaster preparedness. And so, again, this is just, I'm talking about why your leadership journey is never straight. You may start off somewhere today, but as you grow, you meet people in the work you're doing. You realize things about yourself and you want to listen to the inner voice that drives you towards something, that gets you excited, that gets you out of bed in the morning, that gets you to come up with new ideas that you had not thought about. It makes you feel good about yourself. So the leadership journey, then coming back to Harvard, I worked there for 11 years. And then I started to feel like I wanted to do something beyond that. And that's when Aspire was founded. When I was at Harvard, my faculty director, Professor Tarun Khanna, who now teaches, actually, he's been teaching at the business school for the last 30 years, um, said, you know, Meena, there are lots of young, talented people out there globally in the world. And we're talking about students like yourself who are in college. You may have had difficulty going to college because of maybe personal reasons. You may have had to do a job. You may not have the resources. Or even if you had the resources, sometimes you don't get accepted into certain colleges. Regardless of it, you are now in college, you're doing work, you're studying the whatever area you've chosen to study. You're learning. And so what Tarun, Professor Khanna was saying is that a lot of young people who don't have resources, funds, but are super talented, They will not get access to faculty like him who are teaching at Harvard Business School. He said, we have to do something for them. And there are many people like him in different universities, even, at St. Xavier's or Kathmandu University. There are very many talented young professors who are teaching you. And so the question was that how do we make sure that those who can't afford to go to college, how can we give them something that they see within them that is unique, that is special? And so that's how we started Aspire Institute. And what Aspire does is it provides free online leadership training to young people who are either enrolled in college or are recent graduates. So it's for 18 to 29 years of age. If you are that old and you've not heard about Aspire, definitely connect with our young alums who have gone through the Aspire program. And Manish Pandey, who is one of the organizers of today's event, is one of our alums. And what you get is you get to meet other students from other parts of the world. You're sitting in Nepal, but online you're in contact with people from Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Nigeria, Kenya, US, Bangladesh. And what you do is it's 9 weeks long, it's self-paced, and you engage with our professors. So there are 3 professors from Harvard Business School who have designed a program on leadership. You learn about yourself, what your strengths are. You learn how to write resume, how to put a portfolio together, how you prepare for a job interview. You also learn this course designed by the 3 Harvard Business School professors on leadership. And the modules that you go through is one is on individual leadership. That means you yourself, leaders. Professor Siddal talks about leaders are not born, they are made. And again, coming back to my own journey of how I was moving from one experience to another, one failure to another, one success to another, that's all part of leadership. The second component of the course on leadership is led by Professor Khanna, who talks about context. Leadership in Nepal and what you would need to do to make an impact in your community will look different from what a young person like you living in Argentina, because they have different environment, they have different resources, they speak a different language, they have different customs. So what Professor Khanna talks about is when you want to make change, you have to understand your environment in which you're making change. Your environment can become your teacher. It will tell you things that you will not find in books because it's a real-time experience when you're doing something in your local environment, whether it's taking care of an elderly person or someone with some sort of disability, or you're wanting to make change in issues related to climate, or it may be related to science, technology. So all of those pieces are found in your environment, and that's what Professor Khanna talks about. And the last session is led by Professor Karim Lakhani, who also teaches at the Harvard Business School, and he talks about digital tools. We all are now familiar with AI, and we see AI as a tool. How can it be your co-pilot? How can it be your tutor? It can take on different roles, but you still have to be in the driver's seat to do the right kinds of prompts so that AI can give you a better answer. But again, you are the one who is generating that prompt when you use AI. So that's what Professor Karim Lakhani talks about. And then after you complete the program, You become a graduate of Aspire and you get opportunities for mentoring, the kind you get opportunity to volunteer. You also get opportunity to apply for small amounts of financial awards. If someone wants to go abroad to study or you want to take a GRE or TOEFL, you can apply to us for funding. If you have an idea to make change in your community, you can apply to us for seed funding. So those are other opportunities you get. We also host these kinds of sessions regularly where we invite leaders, not just, from your community, from all over the world, and they talk about different topics. And sometimes you can organize just like Manish did this time. So that's what Aspire Institute is about.